the answers to the problems they're trying to solve, they're in the minds of young women. So if they want to succeed moving into the future, they need to look towards young women and women of color.
Yeah, absolutely.
Agreed.
Welcome to another episode of Conversations for a Feminist Future. My name is Mara Mahmud, and I'm the comms coordinator for Fora Network for Change. And today we'll be talking about the power of Gen Z, kind of looking at the differences that go on in the Gen Z experience entering their careers, and just kind of having an open conversation and dialogue about the challenges that we're facing, but also the fun and exciting parts of being Gen Z as well. So I'm joined today by Carmina and Mercy. How are you folks doing today?
Doing great. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, I'm doing great. Really excited to be here. Thank you.
Lovely. Can I get a bit of like an intro of what the two of you do, your relationship to Fora? Do you know each other? Anything like that?
Hi, I'm Carmina. I started my career in the healthcare industry, and I've been working there for 10 years now. I'm an incoming critical care RN, a researcher, a writer, a speaker, but most importantly, I am an alum of Cohort 5 on Rise on Boards with the Fora Network. So I'm really excited to be here.
Amazing. Mercy?
Hi, my name is Mercy Ayesha, and I'm actually another alumni of Fora's Rise on Boards. I believe I was cohort 3 or 4. Might be wrong. Don't remember. But had a really good time. Always kept in touch with the Fora folks, the folks at Fora, and it's been a wonderful journey with you folks. And it was an experience that I really took a lot from. Right now, for the past 2-3 years, I've been in the labor movement. So I went from working for a city councillor to working as a union organizer.
Very cool. Amazing. Okay, so we can just get the conversation started. So Gen Z is often called a multi-hyphenate generation. Do you feel like that label reflects your own experience? And how have you balanced developing deep skills with having to do a bit of everything?
I definitely can relate to maybe previously being like that, just kind of like trying to be the person that's doing everything. And I fought against that a lot, actually, I would say in the past 2 or 3 years, because I actually really do value just being really good and passionate about one thing now, and kind of fighting against this like hustle to like try and get as many opportunities as possible and be on top, or kind of be the best at all of these different things. I feel like what was happening was that I wasn't really able to value my time, and therefore others weren't also able to value my time or my talents.
Real.
And that's why I kind of had to like now focus in on just organizing being my passion right now, and being what I'm focusing on in the labor movement. But I do relate and respect people who are still able to like juggle all the things. I really respect it, but I can't do that anymore.
Honestly, I love that for you. What about you, Carmina?
I love how you mentioned about focusing on one particular passion, because I think that when you are a child or when you're in kindergarten, they ask you, what do you want to be when you grow up? And they make it sound like it's a singular vocation you need to focus on. But no matter what I've decided to pursue, and I've had a really long career where I had multiple different roles, I decided that those experiences are really tools in order for me to pursue my passion and my purpose. I'm not just a nurse. I'm not just a researcher. I'm not just a scientist. But all of these experiences gave me the skills, the capabilities, and the tools I need in order to fulfill what I'm really passionate about and really want to pursue.
Yeah, like I really like the fact that these are just kind of skills that you're harnessing in order to really figure out what you want to do. And I think something we can probably both relate to is fighting against categories and labels as a generation, right? Like, yes, I am, passionate about the labor movement and being an organizer, but that's not all I want to be or all I will ever be. A lot of the skills that I'm learning currently are skills that I hope to take somewhere else. I hope to, adapt and not just take somewhere else in another sector, but hopefully another part of the world, right? And I really completely get where you're coming from when it comes to like just harnessing these skills and doing what you want to do with it. And it's something that I think our generation fights against that so much, or kind of like has lots of hyphens, because that's really what we're trying to gain. We're trying to gain freedom in that way. freedom in what we do with our lives. Working is probably 80% of your life, right? So why not do what you want at that time, right? What you're passionate about.
I could cry. I loved everything about what you guys just said. I feel that so strongly, especially like in my undergrad, I burnt myself out so bad trying to do every single thing.
Same. Oof,
and then I
yeah.
graduated and I was like, okay, what do I do? Like I have all this free time now. And then in my master's, same thing. I just did so much. And then I finished and again had that feeling, okay, what do I do now? And now being my professional career, I'm kind of starting to realize that there's actually so many more paths than they tell you that there are. And the way that you go down those paths is totally up to you. And nobody can really give you tailored advice necessarily, but having opportunities to connect with people who are having a similar experience to you just shows you that actually there's a lot more creativity to what we can end up being in our futures than sticking to just one career path. I know, like, speaking to our parents, I'm sure it's different because they're like, what do you mean? Like, what do you do? What does that mean? And you're just kind of like, well, it means I'm getting paid. Just know, like, I have myself covered and I'll be okay. So that's great. I loved those responses. Another question for both of you would be, what's been the most valuable object lesson that you've had to learn on your own since entering the workforce? Something that no one warned you about, but has turned out to be quite essential.
I think for me, the most valuable thing that I had to learn in the workplace is the power of saying no. I had a particular job where I entered this organization. I was really junior in my career, and I entered a team where they were not supportive. My learning goals were not valued, and my skills and my professional profile was not appreciated. And I was in a situation where the people that we were working with, they were actually in an unsafe scenario. So I decided that I have to leave this particular team and this department of this organization. And when I went to talk to the manager, I explained her to the situation, and the manager tried to skew the situation into her favor, where she's just going to move me to another one of her teams, like not this particular team, but just another one. And then so when talking to the leader who was going to like reorganize and restructure where I was going to be in the organization, I told them flat out that actually, no, I want to leave this department entirely and move somewhere else. And that really shocked the manager because seeing me, I'm very junior, I'm very young. I think she was surprised that I was able to advocate for myself and stand up for myself. But that taught me a really valuable lesson that nobody can dictate where I should be or where I should go. I have to stand up for myself, and I have to be a self-advocate because that's what I want the people that I work with to see in me. So the power of saying no was something that was really a huge lesson that I had to learn really early in my career.
Love that.
I mean, I think to really perfectly encapsulate that, I think it is the power of saying no is a very powerful lesson I learned in the past couple of years. But also in combination with that is how important it is to really stand by your values, even when it's really hard. And I also just really want to commend you for what you did so junior, because I was faced with some of the same options. And because of the financial and economic circumstances that I come from, instead of saying no, I just had to find a way out. Like I couldn't say no then, but I had to find my way out. And in doing that, I kind of had to like walk into a toxic workplace every day, but then still kind of remember that there's some sort of ending to come and just trust that and have faith in that, while also choosing to stand by my values. And I think when you're in a toxic work environment where everyone has kind of absorbed doing the opposite of that for so long, you kind of stick out like a sore thumb. So you become a target, and dealing with that. And, if I could go back and maybe if I had the means, I would have said no, because also it's not just, you have to say no sometimes a couple of times when you're starting out, right? Like for me, it was 2 opportunities. I look back and I think I really should have said no to those 2 things. And, there's also like red flags that I feel like we could talk about, in terms of when you're young, when you're talented, particularly being like a femme of color, you're seen as ambitious, and you're kind of like almost this perfect token, right? For lack of a better word, predatory organizations who want to make themselves look like they have certain values when they don't, right? And, if I really could go back, I would have investigated those folks. I would have really asked some very tough questions like, sat down and maybe had interviews with the people who were managing the team and, really, really questioned them about, okay, how do you deal with conflict? How do you manage the team day to day? Right? Because at the end of the day, if you're coming to me with an opportunity, you want me to be here, then, you should prepare for me to be here. Right? Like, I'm not just this young, and, I personally have been in progressive politics for a while. So young, progressive femme of color, right? That just pretends to have these values. I live by these values, so I'm expecting to go into a workplace that respects me with the values that I come with. So, the power of saying no is a really big one. And I really hope people don't underestimate how much people respect you after you say no. Like, it's definitely a tough, loss. And when I started doing it recently, it was really difficult because you think about, especially coming from I'm not sure what your background is, but, I come from an immigrant background, and I don't have a lot. So when someone offers you an opportunity, you always kind of taught that you might not ever get it again. And, you're lucky to be given this opportunity, but it's really not like that anymore. And you should never, ever put up with, anything that you don't deserve, just because whether it's a paycheck or an opportunity or whatever someone claims they can give you. It's honestly never worth it. And it's something that I never forgot to quote, and I'm not sure who said it. But it's the idea that, you are more likely to be changed by a toxic workplace than you are to change it.
Ooh.
So you should really just leave.
That was tea. Honestly, I totally agree with that. I think this is so nice that you guys were kind of unified in the response as well, because I think it does show there is this thread within Gen Z discourse about the professional workplace that I really love, which is the pushback that a lot of people give. I know that I've gotten I should be honest, I've gotten in trouble and I've gotten flack in certain workplaces because when things are dysfunctional and people don't like something or I don't like what they're doing, I will call that out, but not in a sense where I'm trying to criticize. I'm just kind of thinking, how do we create a better situation? How do we resolve this for everybody? I'm very constructive in my approach, but that pushback almost never gets the reception that I want. So it's actually funny because in a way I feel that I've kind of gone the opposite way of both of you, where sometimes I'm more scared now to speak up about things like that, just because I don't want to face retaliation or pushback against me trying to just be constructive. But at the same time, I think it is a beautiful thing to sit there at a young age and be I don't like this and I don't want to do this anymore. And you can't tell me that I have to. And because there's so much flexibility and choice now, as far as where we can go and who we can engage with, you're not locked in anywhere in the way that, some people might want to make you feel. Kind of bridging a little bit further away from that, but just a curiosity as we talk about things that run within the line of Gen Z. What is a myth about Gen Z that you'd love to debunk and why?
Such a good question.
There are lots.
I mean, we can go. We can talk about a few.
I mean, okay, this idea that our generation is lazy.
I feel they say it about every generation. I think I saw a TikTok
Somebody
the other
say
day
that about us because I actually did not know that.
I saw a TikTok about this actually since 1920. Every 20 years or something, there's some discourse about this generation doesn't want to work. They're lazy. They're not motivated. It's hater energy. And
I think
I don't
as
want
an
any
up
part
and
of it.
coming generation, I think they think that they're lazy, entitled, spoon-fed, spoiled. They think about that for every generation. So I'm okay, just say it so we can get it over with.
It's our turn.
Yeah, exactly. I really disagree with that. Another one I think is this idea that we don't care, this idea that we are somehow lacking in some of the values or really the integrity that previous generations had. And when I think about that, I get even more insulted when I kind of hear those things, because I'm well, we had generations before us that either didn't pass down those values or didn't demonstrate those values. Right. And, when I go into the workplace and I kind of am looking at what people say versus what people do who are older than me, it doesn't always match up. And I think at least in my generation, we are attempting to make sure those things match. And I think that's kind of where some of the lazy comments from. I think the lazy comment comes from the fact that we don't want to burn ourselves out. because burnout's actually a bad thing.
It's like, oh, I actually want to enjoy my weekend.
Yeah,
why is that a hot take?
It's
like,
crazy. So maybe, you know, you think it's lazy. I just want to finish work at 5 because that's the only time I get paid until 5. But actually, if we're trying to have a culture where we are working for the long term and not the short term, then wouldn't that be something that you would also do as well? Right? So I think it's actually the contradictions from previous generations that sometimes informs the stereotypes of our generation. Because we actively fight against those contradictions and we investigate them, we poke at them. I think we're a generation of like pokers and agitators. And I love that about Gen Z. Because we're like, hey, what's that? That's crazy. I don't actually think that's kind of lame. You need to do something about that. Okay, thanks, bye. You know?
Yeah,
that's
and
us.
like unapologetic, like we need to fix this. It's not harsh or judgmental in like the way that people think it is. It's more just like, we could do this better. What are we gonna do?
Yeah.
And ultimately that benefits not just Gen Z, but of all generations in the workplace.
Yes.
Exactly.
So then if everyone can benefit from this change, like why not take the initiative and try to attempt to do this? Because the worst thing to do is to continue with the status quo and to continue like ingraining these like toxic workplace cultures. So I think that that's one of the assets of Gen Z for sure.
Yeah, totally. I think also too, on the lazy note, it's such garbage because one of the most incredible things about meeting the Fora community and meeting the alumni in particular, these are incredible youth. You guys are incredible. Like the things you're doing, the amount of things you're doing, the diversity of things you're doing, the kinds of like well-spoken presentations you offer in conversations like this or rooms that you're able to be in with Fora and outside of Fora. It's so amazing as somebody who gets to witness it and document it and storytell about it, to then also compare to these narratives that are just so unjustified. Because I would say too, Gen Z is extremely, extremely passionate in a way that doesn't necessarily align with work. Like it's more so about what do I actually care about and how do I integrate that into my life? And if I make money from it, that's like a huge benefit, but it's not the sole purpose of what I want to do. I know that's been a huge one for me. My dad and my mom all my life were like, what are you going to do for money? I'm like, I don't know. I'll make it. It just like, I want to do stuff that makes me feel like I'm using my life with importance and with value.
But what are we going to tell our friends that what you do for
Man,
work?
listen.
Oh, yeah. What are they going to think?
What are you going to think? How am I going to explain this at our next family wedding?
It just say, man, that's a good one. Honestly,
that's what comes up from my from my relatives too. Yeah.
My dad actually lied to family in Bangladesh and told them that I was in business school because he didn't understand what I was doing in undergrad. So when I got a call from relatives, I was like, I don't know what to tell you. I am not taking that course load. I can't talk to you about that. I mean, it is what it is. I think it's one of like the hard things of just adjusting, but just because the landscape of work has changed so much. It's not like people are necessarily going into one linear path. I would say the vast majority of people don't do linear paths anymore. So like, that's just what it is. They're working. That's what matters. Thinking about things in the context of like the larger context of Canada and the economy. So our government's focus currently is on building a strong economy. And at Fora, we believe that when you give access to leadership opportunities to young leaders, it helps build a more robust and future-proof economy. When I say that, what kind of things come up for you or what kind of thoughts?
I mean, from what I've kind of seen in the labor movement, you know, I think I think when I think of the jobs that are able to provide young people, particularly young femmes and women, with opportunities where they can kind of like explore different skill sets, I think of jobs in the public sector, right? And then, you know, I think about providing more funding for the public sector, providing more funding for the nonprofit sector, right? And providing funding that is long term. You know, not funding where, from what, you know, I'm seeing kind of, and what I've seen the past 2-3 years of working for public sector unions is, you know, having an understanding that this job is going to be around for the next 5 years. And the next year you realize, oh, this is the last year this position is going to be around.
Yeah.
Right. And how unfair that is for so many people's lives and their career trajectories and, you know, the trajectory for what they plan on learning and how they plan to live.
Yeah.
You know, it's just so hard to plan your life around not knowing whether your job is going to exist in a couple of years or not. It's just not fair. And I think if we're talking about a future-proof economy, I think it starts with making sure that the jobs that are available that do, again, provide that variety for young people and for young folks, like public sector jobs. I'm sure there's other sectors where you can get a range of skills moving around and stuff that I'm forgetting about, but those jobs should be around for a long time. And, you know, they shouldn't be contract jobs. They should be long-term roles, permanent roles with benefits.
Yeah.
Right. Roles that support people's lives and futures, not just the future of an organizational plan.
Agree. 100%. Everything.
Love it. Okay. So I'm going to ask you a question directly then, and we'll pivot a little bit. And this is kind of looking at the relationship between Gen Z and technology. So if you have thoughts on this as well, Mercy, feel free to add. But Carmina, like, how do you think that access to technology has changed the way you engage with work, learning, and leadership?
I think the world has become a lot smaller because of technology. Now Gen Z has access to economies that they have not previously had before. They also have an access to a wealth of knowledge that has previously been gatekept. I think about like entrepreneurship, the nonprofit a nonprofit world. They have the ability to learn things like just straight from their phone. They have the ability to make money off of their phone. So now Gen Z is entering workspaces that have been previously been dominated by older generations. So I think that technology will continue to make the world smaller but at the same time open up opportunities for this generation.
Do you have any worries about it when you think about the way that technology might be changing your job or the ways you integrate it into the work that you're doing?
I think thinking about generations even younger than me, I think the aspect of mental health is huge. I think that we need to have a healthy relationship with technology, especially with the emergence of AI. I think something that I previously had read recently is the idea of like chat or like AI addiction, like being heavily reliant on AI. I think that we still need to find ways to foster critical thinking and have those like hard skills be developed in younger generations. And so I think that we need to start planning early and planning now in our schools, in higher level education, so that the next generation is prepared to tackle these challenges.
Yeah, I think Gen Z is uniquely skilled on or equipped to answer this particular worry because we saw a lot of the transition of like not having technology to it being everywhere. I think that's a really good point about the chat GPT kind of addiction or like reliance where no critical thinking is happening and it's just used as like a Band-Aid solution in many cases to just get something done. I lay awake at night thinking about that, to be honest, because I'm just like, oh man, like the disappearance of critical thinking, that's not good for our future collectively. So that's a really good point. Thank you for bringing that one up. This is kind of going back, I guess, to your past life when you had a few more things going on and you weren't so focused on like the thing you were most interested in. With so many Gen Z professionals juggling school, side hustles, internships, activism, how do you define success for yourself within that context, or how did you?
Well, that's a fantastic question. I think it was really coming to terms with the fact that success isn't what other people defined for me. I think that was the number one thing. You know, I graduated as valedictorian, having to work like multiple jobs to get through school. I was really proud of myself, and my community appeared to be really proud of me too. And then, you know, I walk into these two really toxic workplaces shortly after that. And I'm kind of meant to be happy in these two places because I'm making the money I'm making and because I'm doing a job that is really, really sought after. And I really was the unhappiest I've ever been in a really long time. And
doesn't that suck? Like you're so excited, you work yourself up so much, and then you get there and you're like, wait,
what is
not the party I thought it was going to be.
What is going on? It was nothing short of a nightmare. And to get out of that nightmare, though, I had to have a conversation with myself. And I had to be like, okay, this isn't working. This isn't where I want to be. But it took so much to let go of that.
Yeah.
It took so much to let go of also the fact that my success is somehow related to how work is going and how my job's going.
That's a big one.
Like I was obsessed with, you know, people used to ask me, okay, like, yeah, tell me about yourself. And the first thing I would say is my job. You know, I was that person, right?
Oh, it's always, what do you do?
Yeah,
it's not,
always.
Who are you?
Exactly. Yeah. And now I start with who are you? And
love that.
It's purposeful, and I'm grateful that I'm there. But when I wasn't there, it was, you know, laying awake at night thinking, have I chosen the wrong thing? Am I really passionate about this? Completely doubting myself and even like the values that I've had for so long, because I just couldn't understand why work was so painful and why it didn't match up with this idea I told myself. And, you know, that was reinforced by lots of other things in my life and in society, that this is where I was meant to be and therefore I should be happy with it. Right? So, you know, I had to really deconstruct what being happy and what success looked like for me. And it really started with separating my self-worth from anything related to work.
Love that.
And then after that, you know, I think right now success for me is living and working by my values. And if I'm able to do those two things, and I'm able to do this consistently, and I'm able to do them getting results that aren't maybe not perfect, but are results that I've worked towards, then I'm okay with that. And I'm happy with that.
I love that. I think one of the things that I've thought a lot about is just, you know, work is work.
Yeah.
Like, even if I love my job, the one I have now, this is like my favorite job I've ever had, but I still have days when I'm like, I have to open Slack and and have to open Outlook, and like, if I hear another notification, I'm gonna lose it. Like, I have hours and hours of, you know, photo editing or whatever it is ahead of me, and I feel daunted by it. But at the end of the day, I'm still happy and proud to be there. That's kind of where I'm towing the line too, because I'm like, what do I actually love about this? What am I actually getting out of this? What's the value I'm driving beyond just the credentials on my CV? How do I feel when I'm in these rooms? How do I feel when I'm around these people? Like, that stuff's really, really important. And I'm with you. I've been in some really toxic work environments, and they make you feel awful. So especially when you love what you're doing, but you're not matched in a good spot, like having the ability to just find your success and be like, actually, I would like to just be happy. And that's success to me. That's amazing. And I think that's a brilliant piece of like advice to give to all Gen Z who might be listening to this episode. If you're happy and you're satisfied with what you're doing, that's success.
Yeah. I have to say, I was like in one of my 2 really toxic employers that I spoke about. I was poached from a great job. I was poached from a really great job. And that was a red flag, because poaching and kind of relentlessly recruiting people and headhunting people, like, there's a way to headhunt and a way not to headhunt. This was one of the ways not to do it. And I really look back, and I'm kind of glad I had that journey, and I understood what it was to kind of work in a place where you're just not happy and where it just doesn't match your values. But yeah, I really could have just stayed and been happy and been fine, you know? And if you know that you're okay somewhere and you're happy, and, you know, you're working in a place that matches your values and everything's okay, you're working with some good people, stay, because you're probably more likely to actually develop, not just as a person, but your skill set in a healthier environment than if you are trying to almost like I don't want to say be too ambitious, but if you're kind of like encouraged to chase something that may or may not be there, this kind of mythical trophy, you know, of like whether it's a promotion or whether it's working at a particular place or working with a particular person, like none of those things matter. Just focus on what you've got to do, focus on your craft, focus on, you know, mastering the skill set that you're particularly, you know, passionate about. And, you know, that's really the best way to go.
Do you have any thoughts about that one, Carmina?
I think that something that Gen Z struggles with a lot is destination anxiety. I think thinking that you have to have achieved a certain level of success at a certain age. And the way that I overcame that challenge was I thought about the people that I looked up to and the people that I admire, like even public figures, people in the media, and what do I actually admire about them? And I think what I admired the most about these particular individuals was that they were able to overcome challenges and achieve success despite like the obstacles that they faced in their life. And in the past, I put myself at a distance with these people that have achieved success, but I realized that me and them were not so different. We have
100%.
the same values, we have the same work ethic, we have those same traits. So those people that I put on a pedestal and thought were so far away from me were actually much closer than I thought. Then so again, thinking about what success is, living according to my own terms And as a person of faith, living according to the purpose that God lined for me. So that's how I define success for myself. And nobody can tell you what success is. Not your parents, not your employers, not your mentors. It's up to you to decide that I feel content with where I am, with who I am.
100%.
If you can look at yourself in the mirror and say that I'm proud of all the things that I have done so far, and I'm excited for where I'm going to go, that's success to me.
Yeah, I love that. And to close off this like segment of the discussion, I actually want to share my favorite piece of advice that I've ever been given, which is don't worry about having an interesting resume, focus on becoming an interesting person. And that's been like a really guiding principle for me. And I think it is in alignment with a lot of the things both of you are saying. It really is just like, who are you? And like, what do you bring to the table? And like, what makes you interesting? What makes you passionate? And that being the focus rather than I have this ticked off on my professional resume, because you can have all of that and still show up and not be a great candidate for a job or not be a good fit for a relationship with, you know, a manager or a mentor. So yeah, that's awesome. I feel like emotional having this conversation. You guys are so insightful. Thank you for all of your thoughts and everything you've shared. These questions are posed to both of you. So if you feel called to answer both or one or the other, do as you wish. So the first one I have is, in many ways, we understand that Gen Z is more prepared than the previous generations to navigate the contemporary challenges that come with the world today, meaning just like, you know, climate change and all the complexities that come with just what the previous generations have done to our planet and to our economies, etc. But regardless of the sector that you're working in, do you have any thoughts about feeling like you're more prepared? Do you think that you agree with that or maybe disagree? I'm open to whatever the answers are. And then the second is kind of in alignment or follow-up. Why do you think Fora's programming matters so much for this generation when we think about how prepared you have to be to face the complexity of the job market? And what's your message to those listening who want to support Gen Z who are in leadership positions?
I don't think we're more prepared. You know, and I think that's part of the reason why, you know, the Fora Rise on Boards program was so important for me, because being in a director role was really important experience that I just wouldn't have gotten in any other way. You know, and now that I have that experience, my understanding of what it is to be in those kinds of leadership roles has really changed, and is far more rich and insightful. There's so many lessons I took from that experience that I just were completely priceless. You know, I would not be able to navigate certain landscapes now having not had that experience. And I think one of the reasons why we're not prepared is because we're living in unprecedented times. Previous generations, I think even if they tried, which I don't know if they did, but if they did try adequately to prepare us for this time, I don't know if they could have.
Yeah,
there's so much going on. There's so many difficult things happening, new things happening. You know, how many times we hear the word unprecedented?
An unprecedented amount of times.
Like, yeah, literally historical, unprecedented, first time in history. It's a little bit exhausting, but it's also really scary.
Yeah, that's like so real. We don't talk about how scary it is. We're just expected to just continue on business as usual. But no, there's nothing usual about the business anymore.
No. So, you know, to anyone who does really care about Gen Z, I would say that, you know, you have to be willing to have some really difficult and honest conversations, not just with younger generations, but also with yourself. Is this a young person that you want to help or you want to tokenize? Is this someone that you want to seek a mentorship relationship with, or you kind of want this young person to kind of like be your apprentice? Because those are two very different things, right? Like, do you want this person to follow you, or is it a relationship where you're co-learning together? And you know, I think for generations, I think millennials and above, you know, you really do have to examine unlearning some of the things that you were taught by older generations. You know, just because something was useful for you then doesn't mean it's useful for you right now. And I think there has to be a little bit more faith and trust in the fact that, yeah, our generation doesn't know it all. And maybe people accuse us of feeling like we are that way.
Yeah.
But it's really just the fact that, no, we don't know it all, but neither does anyone else. So if you want to help us out, you have to be prepared to say to yourself out loud, also to others, that you don't know it all either. And I think for me, I've always trusted the mentors that we're able to say, I don't know the answer to this, but I'll help you find out.
Love that. Yeah, what about you, Carmina?
I love to answer the second question.
Yeah, go ahead.
I remember that I once had a job at a particular organization. I work in the healthcare industry, as I mentioned before, and the population of people that we were serving were literally teeny tiny babies, infants, children. But I noticed that the people who were working with these children were literally like 22 to 29, so super duper young. And as someone who's an alum of Fora, I took a look at this organization's board of directors. No women, no young women, no women of color.
Ooh.
And I thought to myself, so you're willing to trust a young woman with the most precious thing you ever created, your child, but you wouldn't let your organization be run by young women.
I hope you said that to them. Did you?
It was,
She's like, I thought it.
Yeah, because that right there is a word. Yeah.
So I think that if organizations want to serve the greatest totality of people, then their top level leadership needs to be representative of the people that they serve. The answers to the problems they're trying to solve, they're in the minds of young women. So if they want to succeed moving into the future, they need to look towards young women and women of color.
Yeah, absolutely.
Agreed.
Yeah. Well, this is a fabulous conversation. Thank you both for being here and for bringing, such enriched points and nuance to the conversation as well. I'm privileged to meet Fora alumni all the time, so this is no exception. I'm really grateful to have been here with both of you today. So to everybody listening, thank you for tuning in, and we'll catch you at the next episode.